So a couple of related questions, since you're the flight director, but in terms of a go no go criteria for an actual launch, if a system's broken, there's redundancy everywhere, but I'm sure you don't want to use any of that redundancy up on the pad. Are you responsible for that decision as an overall responsibility, or do you just own the flight part and somebody else is making that we're going to go or not go?
It's pretty much the flight part, but we work very closely with the launch control team to develop those criteria, the launch commit criteria, because we're the ones who have to operate the vehicle. So we know, and we write the flight rules for, like, we have each section. I was talking about each of the different consoles. They each of them have their own section of flight rules, and the very last rule in the flight rule in each section is a early return rule. So if they experience any particular failure in their system, if it's depending on what the failure is, if it leaves the vehicle zero fault tolerant to a safe return, then we're going to call it an early return mission. So we're going to bring it back before that other, in hopes of getting it home safely before that next failure happens. Because if that next failure happens, we lose the vehicle. And we leaned forward quite a bit on Artemis I because it was a test flight and there was no crew. So we kind of, we were a little more lenient on what we did there. But once we got, and I'll tell you, one of our primary mission objective for Artemis I was to test the heat shield, and that was going to protect the crew module on reentry. And we wanted to test it at lunar return velocities and conditions. So we're talking like 11.6 kilometers per second, really, really fast. And once we did the trans-lunar injection, the big burn that basically sent Orion on the way to the moon, we basically will have achieved that objective. We could turn around right away and come back, and we're going to come in at over 11.6 kilometers per second. So we leaned forward. We would, if we had a system where if the crew was on board, we wouldn't even have done it, and they would bring them home safely. We leaned forward, and we would actually go. Our rules said we would actually burn TLI, and then we'd pick an early return trajectory and bring it home safely.
Well, that's interesting, because I was going to ask you if you did anything different for Artemis I than you will for Artemis II with crew, and it sounds like it wasn't just like a total dress rehearsal. You were actually able to be a little more aggressive.
Absolutely. Purposely. Yeah, purposely. Yeah. In order to be able to test that vehicle and make sure it's going to be safe for the rest of the crew on board.